Greetings viewers, EricTheCarGuy here, back again with another Fixing It Forward episode for you. Yes, once again with the 2003 Nissan Sentra SER. In the last episode, we addressed the wheel bearing and the ball joint, both on the left front. And things didn't quite go as we had hoped. And in this episode, we're going to be addressing the brakes on this Nissan Sentra. And once again, things don't necessarily go as planned. But instead of listening to me talk about how things go south, why don't you just watch the video and see for yourself? I'm done talking. You want to get watching. Eric, roll the clip. Since all we're left with now is the brakes, and I was intent on machining the rotors, I'm going to jump to the other side, check out that caliper, make sure that caliper moves. If it doesn't move, then I'm going to need to get two calipers. If it does move, then I'm only going to need to get one. You know, something else I should probably check. We're going to have to replace the brake hose over here anyway, so we will need to bleed this caliper. I don't have a lot of hope here, kids. Just rounded it. That blows. Just got these not long ago. Auto grip pliers. They're like vice grips, but you don't have to adjust them. They're self-adjusting. What the heck? There's an adjuster for tension. Nope. Okay then. Officially impressed. Just gonna add a little more penetrating oil down in there. But it's working. Sorta. It was moving, but it did grip, and it did grip pretty good, and I didn't have to do all that setup stuff like you do with vice grips. We might need two calipers. It was hiding in my back pocket. I looked around for a while for this, until finally I was like, hey. We need two calipers. We're going to have to source these calipers, which we'll get in a little bit. But while we're waiting for those, figure why not take care of these rotors and get everything all ready for when the calipers arrive and we finish putting this together. Am I concerned about ruining this brake hose? No, I'm not. Because guess what? I'm replacing it anyway, so there. And if I remember right, the other side was on there pretty good, so I'm just going to go for the 1/2 inch impact right out of the box. It's rusted up there pretty good if you have to use a 1/2 inch impact to get those out of there. To the machine. Before we go to the machine, I'm going to clean the hats. But you can almost see when you look at the rotors, this is the left front rotor and this is the right front. You can see how this one was definitely sticking and hanging up. You can just see the discoloration and how this one is. Now I've had my hands all over both of them obviously, but you can certainly see a marked difference between the two sides. That is one purdy rotor. 20.9, minimum is 20. So we're good. What do you say we take an extra step here with this Nissan, since it is a race car, and give it a race car brake rotor finish. The stone of directional sanding. It's just for this purpose. I don't often use it, but I got it and I have time. This is what it does. Pretty cool, huh? Only takes a second. Look at that. Oh, it's a thing of beauty. So beautiful. So beautiful. Looks right at home. It is a different day, and I've reached out to Car Part Kings, and they have provided for us a set of front calipers for this Nissan. Thank you, Car Part Kings. Been saying that a lot lately. Link in the description. What I've also been saying a lot lately is thank you, viewers, for donating to Fixing It Forward, because, as I said in the other segment, you have donated a set of pads to go with these new calipers. So we're going to completely renew these front brakes. I'm also adding the brake hoses on both sides. One to repair the leak on this side that I created, and one to repair the leak on that side that was there when we got here. Either way, those hoses were going to have to be replaced. I believe I have all the tools ready. My safety glasses on. Let's do this. We have our freshly machined rotors with the non-directional surface. How pretty. To hold this thing in place, I've talked about this in other videos. Just going to take this here lug nut with this giant axle nut. Use that to hold the rotor nice and straight while we install the caliper and everything else. Car Part Kings sent the calipers out ASAP, but I had to leave this sit overnight, and I didn't want to leave it sit with the brake system open, so I put the brake hose on this side while it sat so that it wouldn't bleed all the fluid out of the master cylinder again. A lot of you have suggested taking the brake pedal and holding it on the floor with like a broomstick or something to hold it there, and that will prevent any brake fluid from leaking out. I just chose to throw this hose on here because that's what I was going to do anyway. But that is where we are. Take my bungee cord back. I'm going to remove this old brake hose also, and I'm going to be connecting the new brake hose to my new brake caliper when we're all done. The old brake hose is just hanging there by this one attachment, so I'm just going to remove that and attach the new brake hose. And to do that, a couple taps. Get this clip off. Just remove this guy. The old brake hose, and yes, that is where it was damaged. Oh no. These weren't really installed to my liking. And I say this because when they were attached to the back of the caliper, they were attached like this. Had they attached it like this, it would have allowed more brake hose up the top, probably to the tune of about an additional inch. But because it was like this, there was this huge kink in the bottom, like that 90-degree angle, which was kind of setting it up for the same issue that happened here. So I am sad about losing these steel braided brake lines. I don't believe these came on here stock. I think somebody added these after. But I'd rather have a non-leaking brake line than a performance brake line that is leaking. To reattach this part, not going to be hard. Just got to put this up in here and reinstall that clip. Here's my new caliper. I need to package up the old one to send it back for a core. But one thing it came with in the bag was some of those springs that I dug out, but I'm going to put these brand new ones on instead. Help prevent fluid loss. I'm going to use my crimpy hose now. I can on this rubber hose. 11 millimeter on this connection. I've also got my pan underneath here to catch anything that might drip. I'm glad I had it there. That's all stuff coming out of the caliper, which I do not care about. Just gonna let that drain out. Came with a new caliper bolt. I think I'll replace that as well. And most excited to see this, stainless steel, not copper washers. I have said in the past that I'm not a fan of copper washers on fittings. Some people have suggested heating them up a little bit, you know, making them work, and that they work just fine for them, but over the years I've had more issues with copper washers than any other. And I think, like most of you, whenever you have issues with something, you avoid using it again in the future or doing something with it again in the future. It's just how we are, I think. I need to put the shims in. I need to get the bracket on there. Probably the easiest way to do this is to just remove this now. These are 14 millimeter. And I'm just going to install the bracket, but before I do, I can put these on. Everything will be new. It'll be so exciting. I've said it in the past, even with new calipers, I still service the slide pins with a little silicone paste. I just do. It's an old habit. Can't see how it hurts. As you can see, it's already lubricated with silicone paste, not grease. Grease is a no-no here. A little bit of anti-seize on the ends. I always put the indicator on the leading edge. In this case, it's going to be on the top. For some reason, I see a lot of people doing just the opposite, and I'm not really sure why. Because they always seem to be on the leading edge, so it makes noise when you back up. I always have trouble with new shims. I'm gonna get the pads to go in. It's always a huge pain in the derriere. Success. We need to put these back in since they went missing. Little holes in the ends of the pads for those. Should work like return springs to help keep the pads away from the rotor when they're not in use. When the brakes are not in use, I mean. Now we just need to reconnect the brake hose. I save these and put them in the old caliper. It just makes it nice to give it back to the parts people, because that way it won't drip all over the place inside the box. I consider that rude. It's the least I could do. I've already got the washer on the outside of the bolt. Put another washer in on that side. And since this is angled out this way, that means this hose goes on this side. And you'd see, unlike the other hose that was in here, this is not pointed back towards the axle, it's pointed straight up. It allows for more room. There we go. I'm going to open the bleeder up on this side so that I can let it gravity bleed remove my restriction there. Let it gravity bleed while we start the other side. And that may save us a little bit of time when we go to bleed the brakes. And as we can see, it's already been successful. Still going to need to bleed them, but we won't need to bleed them as much because we just did that. It's a thing of beauty. Starting with a lug nut trick again. In an effort to minimize blood loss, I'm going to try to get this brake hose off of here and the new one up on as quickly as possible. That way I don't have a lot of brake fluid bleeding the master cylinder dry. So I'm going to be moving pretty quick. It starts with clipping the zip ties. Now, since it's not quite in there properly, I need to try and hold this in place while I knock it loose. And I suspect that it's not tight, and that's the reason why it's leaking. Or maybe there was something that went wrong with the installation. Honestly, I don't know. And really, I don't care because, well, let's face it, I'm replacing it. I'm gonna clean this off a little bit before I get it completely apart. I don't want to offend my new parts by being dirty. And I know, I say stay dirty all the time. I can almost hear you sometimes screaming at the screen. I also watch you while you sleep. You snore. And the dripping begins. Now, since I want the hose to end up with that orientation where it's facing out, like I said before, looking at this, there's like a little bump on the inside there. I'm going to try to make that bump face the body. Since it already seems to be leaking out, I'm just going to use my pliers and stem the tide right now. At least I thought it would stem the tide. Oh, I can see why it didn't. I can get it on there. There you go. That should give me some time to work. Love these flare wrenches. I love how wide they are. Ta-da! It's like magic. Gonna get the middle attachment of my brake hose taken care of now. There we are. Let's prep our caliper. Oddly, this side did not come with a new brake hose bolt, nor did it come with washers. Guess I just forgot to put them in the bag. Oh, I got that part. And these dreaded copper washers. Eesh. Guess I'm going to have to take the bolt out of the old one. This is actually the bolt from the other side. I suppose it doesn't really matter. I hate reusing washers though. Let me see if I can dig up some washers and I'll be back. Okay, found me some copper washers. Of course I had some left over, I don't use them. But they are new as opposed to putting on the old ones. So I guess we'll call this the lesser of two evils. I always have trouble getting that inboard one in. I know what it is, there's a camera in the way. Oh wait, I see what the problem is. This got bent over. I bend it back.
So it's not the cameraman?
No, not this time. Now it's lined up. Before it was not. Before it was off slightly. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Ho! Went right in. Somebody didn't care when they put this caliper together. The boots aren't attached. Barely any silicone on here, which is why I do this, because sometimes there is silicone on here, but it's just so little. Brake hose with new washers. Much as I hate these copper washers. Better than no washers. That's right, I forgot the springs. I could say cameraman Brian reminded me, or I could say when I went down and looked on the cart, I saw them laying there. Either way, we will install them now. Sigh. All right. Open it up for the gravity bleed. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Didn't take hardly any time at all for the other side. Huh, and here we are, already. All right, I say, go back there, remove the rear wheels, service those rear brakes, make sure those are good to go. I'm also going to box these calipers up, get them ready for sending them off for cores, bleed the brakes, take it out for a drive. Should be good. Just tag back on. Shove it in the bag. Oh, really? What I just found. Well, what that means, those copper washers have already been used. So I'm gonna leave those on there and gonna leave it on there the way it is. And I guess replenish my stash with this. Sucks I didn't see that sooner. Critical part, make sure you keep it critical, critical. Bye-bye. Early on we mentioned that these brakes were doing okay, aside from being a bit rusty. The steel lines back here look fine. Not gonna mess with those. Gonna leave those be, but I will service this caliper, make sure everything's moving like it should. Ugh. Yeah, these pads aren't bad, but they have rusted into place, which is probably the reason why they're hanging up a little, and one of the reasons why I'm servicing it. I'm gonna go have to get something to remove them. Got this hammer and chisel. Wow. This car was badly in need of a brake service. Let me show you how I deal with this problem. And really what happens is the rust on the pads and the rust underneath these shims cause the pads to bind in place. Now because this is rusted up, I'm going to take a little bit off the end and a little bit off this inside edge. And that should allow the pad to slide around inside the caliper a little easier. Basically what I'm ending up with. You can also sand on the caliper and do the same thing, but I've just found this to be the quickest, easiest way. Instead of leaving a sharp point in here, I just rounded that edge just a little bit. Let's see if they fit in the caliper nicely now. Yeah. Much nicer. I'm going to clean these slides in here, and I'll be able to rotate a lot more freely than it did previously. That side they go in a lot easier now. I also want to, during a brake service, make sure that this piston is in its correct position, because sometimes if this is off to one side, it needs to be at 12 and 6 and 3 and 9. If it's off to one side, there's a little peg that it needs to rest into oftentimes. It won't be able to rest in that peg if it's not in its correct orientation, and it'll push on that peg and give you a soft pedal because it's pushing on this peg instead of the entire back of the pad. So right now it looks like we're in a good position, so put this back on. I'm going to put a little anti-seize on these threads, just a little. That's about it. See how much easier it moves now. That will equate to less drag and better fuel economy. While I'm here, why not a little bit of penetrating oil in that bleeder and make sure that it works. Ah, nice. Fluid's already coming out. Perfect. Now we move to the other side. I have this novel idea. Since we're going to do the same thing to the bleeder on this side, why not start with that? Give it some time to soak. Give it some time to think about what's to come. Just to check, we have similar issues over here. So we'll kind of do a before and after. Brake service, we used to do it at Honda every 30,000 miles. And especially on rear calipers, it was almost always a good idea. Because rear calipers tend to stick more than front ones. For the most part, rear calipers, or just rear brakes in general, are only doing about 20% of the work. Most of the braking is done by the front brakes. It's physics, kids. Maybe. Just grabbed it because it was handy. It's working. Would a pry bar be better? Yes. But it was handy. This caliper looks like it's been replaced. Notice the piston's a little bit different on this side than it is on the other. I wager somebody has been doing something with the brakes on this side. Yeah, see, if I were to put this on here, I would have actually put this brake pad on the other side so that this indicator was at the bottom and not at the top. But we can see that the calipers on this side and this side are different, and also the shims down here were different also. So somebody replaced one of these calipers back here at one point. See that rust that came out? That's what's making that noise. It'll go away, but if not, we'll have to come back in here and get rid of it. But oftentimes I hear complaints of brake noise after a brake job, and that would be why. Because shims and things get moved around, rotors and things get moved around, and as they do, those little bits of rust start coming off. I think once this wheel's on here and we do a couple brake applications, we should be good. Now let's see if that bleeder came loose. Try other means. Well, that takes care of that. No bleeder valve for you. We bleeded the line. Wow. That was not on there very tight. It's kind of scary how loose that was. Houston, no problem. Oh, it's stripped. Well, let's hope this works. I don't even know if it'll work because this one's considerably longer. It's a good thing that we had that other one on hand because this old one, as you can see, is stripped. It's time to get Brian in the driver's seat. Yes, I could use a vacuum bleeder, but I can on this one. Gonna need Brian for this one because there's no bleeder valve. Let's get these brakes bled out, seat it in, take it out for a drive, see how it does. To the driver's seat, Brian. Before I get started, topping off the master cylinder. As much fluid in there as I can. Brian is now in the vehicle. I'm going to use my trusty bleeder bottle to go around each of the bleeders. Now I'm going to do it a little bit different. Since I replaced both front calipers, I'm actually starting in the front and then working my way to the back. Just cuz. Yell at me if you want, but you know what? You can't stop me. It already happened. Okay, Brian, pump that brake pedal up. It's going to take a little bit probably because these front pads these calipers haven't come out yet. Like pump the brake pedal like with feeling. Like long, all the way to the floor. All the way to the floor? Yeah, as far as you can get it down. Yeah, now I'm starting to get something. Okay. Now we will work with that. Hold it. Pump it up. That sounds better. Hold it. Not seeing any air coming out right now. Moving on. Avoid getting brake fluid onto paint. It does ruin the finish. Now to the other side. All right, pump it up. Hold it. Pump it. Hold it. Pump it. How's that feel, Brian?
Excellent.
Yeah, I figured it would. We might not even need to do the backs, but I'll do the backs just for good measure. But I'm not seeing any air coming out of the front. This also gives us the opportunity to, in essence, change the brake fluid, which probably hasn't happened in a while, and that's not a bad thing either. All right, Brian, pump it. Hold it. I'm not seeing any air back here. Pump it. Seeing nice clean brake fluid, but no air. And that is just fine. Now for that stupid problem wheel. Ah, wrong size wrench. Good thing the card is right here, so it would help if you grab the right wrench, Eric. Right. Pump it. Hold it. How's that feel, Brian?
Real good.
All right, well, I say we put this thing back together and take it out for a drive. We will now top off the master cylinder one final time. And it's got new brake fluid on top of all those new brake parts. After this, our brakes should be golden. I'm gonna put these wheels on, I'm just gonna run them down. These wheels are gonna be coming off several times before this vehicle leaves. And if I have my way, I got my fingers crossed, I'm hoping to hook it up with some tires before it goes. That means that the final time I put the wheels on, I will torque them. Right now, I'm not doing it yet, but the last time these wheels go on before this thing leaves, I'll be sure to torque them properly. For now, we're gonna do it easy. Those rotors are pretty. The new caliper is pretty. It's also pretty. You're so pretty, oh so pretty. My fat American fingers are having trouble getting down inside these access points for the lug nuts. Stupid fat American fingers. That could be a band. Stupid fat American fingers. Give Eric the Car Guy credit on that one. This wheel used to be on the left front, if you remember. And it has a lot of brake dust. Likely from that caliper that was sticking. Seems to be dirtier than the other wheels. So that might be something that you can just do a quick visual inspection on. Look for like one wheel that might have more brake dust than the other. Could be an indication. I've also done videos about how to diagnose them, checking their temperature. You have options. I love new parts, especially new parts that I can see like brakes. That's sexy. No, I'm not going to paint them red. I'm not saying that, you know, you're not cool for doing stuff like that. I'm just like, why? I just don't have that much time. But, whatever. It's a thing, though. Red means stop. Oh, sorry. I was on a rant. Didn't see you there. I'm going to clean the battery terminals. Told you I would. Because it was crusty. Ooh, something was on, I think. If it made the popping noise. Tool abuse. These German pliers can take it. Trust me, they like abuse. Can't win with this car. Ugh. Something tells me we'll be replacing that battery terminal. It's probably not a bad thing because it's all corroded in here too. I hate these kids. Hate them. See if this car still stops, or stops better. Let's bed these pads in. I got a little bit of noise from back there, from that caliper. Wheel bearing good, feels solid on the road, it's quiet. This has improved the ride, but still, I think we can get some more out of those tires. We are back out on the road with this Sentra SER, the pirate car, SER. Sorry. It feels awesome. I mean, the ball joint, the wheel bearing, no more noise up there. The steering is nice and tight. It doesn't feel loose. It felt a bit loose, honestly, when I drove it before, but now there's definitely a firmness to it. Steering wheel's a little bit off, but that doesn't matter. We're replacing the power steering rack anyway, so we're going to need alignment before this is all said and done. Outside of that, I have a confession to make. The brake pedal does not feel as good as it did when I first started, and that's because we don't have those steel lines anymore. But the brakes do work good. Brian hates it when I do that, but I mean, when you hit the brakes, you are stopping. So I will take working brakes. A little disappointed about not having that feedback anymore, but it is what it is. It stops on a dime, though. It really does. Outside of that, I want to thank Car Part Kings and you, the people that donated to Fixing It Forward. There'll be links in the description to that, amongst a bunch of other things, including a link to the Fixing It Forward page where you can make a donation yourself if you so desire. Anyway, I want to thank you again for those contributions. Aside from that, if you have automotive questions, I'd ask you to head over to EricTheCarGuy.com. Welcome video there to tell you about the stuff we have to help you. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, also Instagram, and I close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty. And I'll see you next time on the next episode of Fixing It Forward. Bye.